Gadget's field trip.
We're going on a visit.
Inspector Gadget's field trip.
Come on, let's go with him.
Inspector Gadget's field trip.
What's that, you ask? What is it?
Inspector Gadget's field trip.
Well, no one wants to miss it.
Inspector Gadget's field trip.
We're going on a visit.
Inspector Gadget's field trip.
Come on, let's go with him.
New places, new faces. Inspector Gadget's field trip.
Inspector Gadget's field trip.
Buongiorno, buongiorno. Inspector Gadget here in the middle of the world's largest boot, Italy. We're going to search for the tallest, the coolest, and the weirdest parts of Italy. We've got a lot to see, so let's go Gadget field trip. I'm here in Venice, Italy. Wowzers, it sure is wet. I'm up to my Gadget knees in high water. Venice is actually made up of hundreds of little islands connected by hundreds of little bridges, connected by a lot of singing gondoliers. They keep the fish entertained. I'm standing in St. Mark's Square, the center of Venice. This is where the action's really hopping, especially if you're a pigeon. Here in the center of Venice is a huge bell tower. In Italy, a bell tower is called a campanile. Ask not for whom the campanile tolls. It tolls for pigeons. This is the campanile in St. Mark's Square. Galileo, the famous scientist and astronomer, used the top of this huge bell tower to demonstrate his new invention. No, not the huge bell, the telescope. Because there's so much water in Venice, buildings were built on stilts to keep them dry. But the campanile was so popular that the people of Venice, or Venetians, as they like to call themselves, kept adding to it. It got so heavy, the stilts collapsed, taking the whole tower with them. You could hear the bells clanging all the way to Rome, which is where the original architects moved after the accident. When the tower was rebuilt, they added twice as many stilts to keep the bells in the belfry. Once you reach the top of the tower, you'll find 5 different bells, each with a different ring. These different rings were used to tell the Venetians important things they needed to know, like bing bing bong or bong bong bing, which meant, look out, the tower's falling again. Actually, one bell meant the start of the workday. A different sound meant that it was noon, time for lunch, my favorite. Then there's my not-so-favorite, the bell that warned the people of an execution. Luckily, they don't use that bell anymore. Hey, maybe they could use it to ring in the new year. Wowzers, you can see all of Venice from up here, especially the parts that aren't underwater. What a view! Of course, this isn't the original view, because this isn't the original tower. When the tower collapsed, an exact copy was built in its place. An exact copy of the view just kind of followed along naturally. There's something you don't see every day. A winged lion standing on top of a pillar, probably keeping his feet dry. Actually, that's a statue called the Winged Lion of St. Mark. It's the symbol of the city of Venice. That's the famous clock tower of St. Mark Square, a tower with plenty of time on its hands, which is better than having a winged lion scratching around on its face. Go, go, Gadget ladies! Here's an Inspector Gadget field trip fact. The bell on top of the clock tower of St. Mark's Square has been struck so many times they had to rotate it so there was a new surface to strike. That's a lot of bing-bonging in the belfry. This clock can tell you the position of the sun and moon in the sky. It can tell the signs of the zodiac, but it can't tell them much. Oh, yes, it even tells the time. What's that on top of the clock tower? Oh, they're bionic statues. Hi, guys. What a bunch of stiffs. These statues are known as the Moors. According to my Gadget computer, they're made of bronze and they strike the huge bell every hour on the hour. Wowzers, that's loud. Keep it down. Don't you know what time it is? Oh, I guess you do. There's no better place in the world to use my Gadget telescope than here in St. Mark's Square. Makes me feel like Galileo. On a clear day, you can see the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Now, that's a powerful telescope. And that's a tower in need of investigating. The tower was originally designed by Bananas Pizza Nose. No, that's Bananas Pisano. He designed the tower to be a staggering 328 feet high. Construction was stopped at only 179 feet to keep the tower from leaning all the way over. The construction workers kept sliding off the top. If they hadn't quit, it would have been an arch. And who wants to see the Leaning Arch of Pisa? The Leaning Tower is actually a bell tower for the local church. To test your alertness, what is a bell tower called in Italy? A campanile. But why does it lean? My Gadget computer tells me it started leaning before workers even finished the first level. Probably because the ground is softer under one side and the heavy marble tower started to squash the soil. Ever since it started to lean, people have tried to unlean the Leaning Tower. Starting at the third level, the huge columns that support each level were actually made shorter on one side to try and even out the lean. Even when the tower was finished, the heaviest bells were put on one side to try and weigh down the tower. But it kept on leaning. Visitors came from all over the world to see the famous Leaning Tower. So the people of Pisa stopped trying to straighten the tower and just tried to keep it from collapsing, especially on top of paying customers. Galileo, the famous Italian scientist, must have really loved bell towers. Not only did he use the campanile in Venice to demonstrate his telescope, but he used the Leaning Tower of Pisa to help with another experiment. Legend has it he stood at the top of the tower and dropped 2 cannonballs. One of the cannonballs was very heavy, the other much lighter. He dropped them both at exactly the same time. Galileo dropped the different-sized cannonballs, but they hit the ground at the same time, proving his theory that objects fall at the same speed, even if they're different in weight. This is known as the law of falling bodies. The Leaning Tower of Pisa leans a whopping 15 feet to the south. That means if you stood on top, you would be 15 feet closer to Venice than if you stood at the bottom. Wowzers, that's as long as my Gadget mobile. I hope you've enjoyed our field trip as much as Galileo and I have. Well, me anyway. We've climbed to the top of a huge bell tower, saw beautiful clocks, and found out what makes a leaning tower lean. Until next time, go Gadget Field Trip.